What is going on, New York Giants fans? D. Illa here. Wanted to come out here in this video and talk about J.J. McCarthy, the complete mystery at quarterback. Nobody knows what to think about J.J. McCarthy. A lot of Giants fans out there don't want anything to do with J.J. McCarthy at 6. And I know when it comes to this New York Giants fan base, most of y'all seem to think that J.J. McCarthy cannot get it done. And you guys are much more interested in drafting a guy like Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. And I understand that completely. Hell, I'm a big time fan of Malik Neighbors myself, man. I have said that I think Malik Neighbors could potentially come out and be a better wide receiver in this league than a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. That's just my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm right, but if it happened, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised by it. But this team needs a quarterback. No doubt about it. Daniel Jones is not the answer. This is a loaded draft class at the wide receiver position. I could almost guarantee you 2 to 3 years from now, we're going to look back at this draft class and we're going to see wide receivers that were taken in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round that potentially become number 1 wide receivers for their respective teams in this league. We're going to see that happen. That's how stacked this wide receiver class is in the 2024 draft. So there's going to be talent available in those later rounds. Now, there's things that J.J. McCarthy does that I like. There's things that J.J. McCarthy does that I don't like. The man didn't necessarily have enough passing attempts for me to give an honest opinion on him. And I feel like that's the way a lot of people out there look at him, especially when it comes to scouts and NFL analysts. You just can't give a definite answer on the guy. But something that people really need to take into consideration here is the guy that is potentially trying to move up to get a guy like J.J. McCarthy. And that's Kevin O'Connell from the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota traded to get themselves an additional first-round pick this past week. So they're definitely trying to move themselves in position inside that top 6 to get in front of us to go get a guy like J.J. McCarthy or Drake May if they're able to get themselves inside the top 3. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but I can almost say for sure they're definitely trying to get in front of us to potentially draft a guy like J.J. McCarthy. And again, think about the guy that's trying to do this. This is a guy that is an offensive mastermind. Kevin O'Connell is a hell of a head coach. He's been a good offensive coordinator, been a good member of a coaching staff for teams like the Washington Redskins, the Cleveland Browns, San Francisco 49ers, and we all saw the success that he had as an offensive coordinator with the Los Angeles Rams, ultimately being a part of that team when they won the Super Bowl, along with help from Sean McVay. I mean, during his time with the Los Angeles Rams, Kevin O'Connell's nickname was Tall McVay, and we all know what Sean McVay has been able to accomplish in this league, especially as a talent evaluator, being able to get the most out of later round draft picks, and just producing a good, solid football team on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Now, I'm not saying Kevin O'Connell is Sean McVay, but he has definitely showed a lot of traits that Sean McVay presents himself. But this is a guy that definitely knows how to identify NFL talent and run an NFL offense. Look at the moves that he made last year just with the Minnesota Vikings. He brought in a guy like Joshua Dobbs after the Kirk Cousins injury. Justin Jefferson went down. That team was just trying to keep their heads above water. He brought in a guy like Dobbs, and Dobbs played well for that team. He was able to identify that. Now, was Dobbs the long-term season answer for the Minnesota Vikings last year? No. But, again, he kept that team in position to where they were arguably still in contention for the playoffs. Look at the moves that he made prior to last year. Mid-season, he brought in a guy like T.J. Hawkinson. He added a tight end to that team, added a different element to that offense that the Minnesota Vikings did not have. They were trying to get it out of Irv Smith Jr., but Irv Smith Jr. could not stay on the field. He made the Minnesota Vikings one of the most explosive offenses in the league with T.J. Hawkinson, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson, along with K.J. Osborne. And then prior to last year, he saw that an aging veteran like Adam Thielen was not going to be able to get it done for the Minnesota Vikings like a second wide receiver option should be able to get it done for that team. So he kicked him to the curb, and he brought in a guy like Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is a wide receiver that could potentially be one of the best wide receivers from the 2023 draft class. I mean, this is a guy that could potentially be better than a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba, and he was able to identify that. Honestly, gun to my head, if I had to take a head coach over Kevin O'Connell and Brian Daboll, I think I'm taking Kevin O'Connell, if I'm just going to be honest with you. And I know a lot of people are going to look at me and say, well, How could you say, Kevin O'Connell's a better head coach than Brian Daboll, especially considering what happened 2 years ago in that playoff game? Well, again, Minnesota's offense was facing a hell of a lot more resistance in our defense than, our offense was facing in Minnesota's defense. We all know this. This isn't a secret or anything. But like I said, really pay attention as to who is trying to make this move to potentially get a guy like J.J. McCarthy. Because I know for a fact, man, I'm putting a hell of a lot more stock into what Kevin O'Connell could be telling me over what people are writing in the message comments or what people are putting together in these little videos on YouTube. And I know there's a lot of negativity when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, especially amongst this fan base. I don't think anybody really likes him. And it's kind of funny because some of these people out here were probably big-time fans of Daniel Jones, and based on what we've seen so far with Daniel Jones, we all know how that's going to end up. So how could you really take what any of those people say seriously? Heck, I was one of those guys. I liked Daniel Jones for 3.5 years, and I turned out to be completely wrong. I don't want to hear about offensive line issues, wide receiver talent. I just don't think the guy can do it. I've completely cut ties with Daniel Jones. I'm done with Daniel Jones. But that's something I just wanted to bring to people's attention, is pay attention to the guy that is trying to make this move to get in front of us for a potential franchise quarterback. And that might tell you all you really need to know about what J.J. McCarthy could ultimately become at this level. I'm not saying it's going to happen year one. I think J.J. McCarthy is definitely going to need some developmental time. But in the end, could J.J. McCarthy potentially turn into that guy that most franchises are looking for? Hey, if it happened, I wouldn't be surprised. And Kevin O'Connell could be telling you all you need to know right now if you're paying attention.